Dan Illman, Mike Beer taking a look at the feature race at Delaware Park on Wednesday. Let's throw up the field for race number 7. We're going a mile and a half on the turf. It's the $200,000 Cape Henlopen Stakes. 6 in here, Mike, but some nice longer distance turf runners. The 3, the Gray Wizard, the 2, Limited Liability. They just ran first and third in the Grade 2 Belmont Gold Cup.
Both ran well in that race, going 2 miles. They actually get to go a little shorter here. Does that help Limited Liability, Dan, a little more than it helps the Gray Wizard? Maybe. They both ran really well last time.
Let's throw up our Timeform US pace projector. We don't expect pace in these marathon turf races, but Timeform US believes it's the no speed situation. And Magic Michael, a horse that's more effective on dirt, is stretching all the way out. He figures to be up and on the lead in here. It's all about, can he transfer his decent dirt form to turf, and how far does he really want to go?
Yeah, major questions with Magic Michael in this race. I guess if you like him, you can just take your chances with him on the lead here, Dan. I mean, he's got a little turf pedigree to handle it. He just hasn't run well on the surface yet.
I mean, he has only run 3 times on the turf, and as Mike mentioned, it hasn't been very pretty, but he hasn't been on the lawn in about 2 years, and maybe he's a better horse at this point. He's coming off of a allowance race last time out, so as we start talking about Magic Michael, really the question is, he's an honest horse, he's done well at longer distances on the dirt, but he's facing a pretty strong field for $200,000 at Delaware, so he really is going to have to drop the anchor and hope that nobody comes calling in the stretch.
Yeah, I thought that was maybe the major drawback. I mean, again, you're right, Dan, that he's only tried turf, a few times here, so maybe you don't want to be too hard on him for it and give him one more chance. That's fine, I guess. But it's not like he lands in some kind of soft spot here, and sometimes these races don't come up that strong. This one came up pretty strong.
I think you made a good point about this shorter distance perhaps being better for the 2, Limited Liability, and maybe that could help him turn the tables on the Gray Wizard. But I thought he had a great opportunity in the Belmont Gold Cup last time out. He got the first run on the Gray Wizard. He was grinding it out in the stretch. He just couldn't finish with that horse. I've always been a fan of his. I have to admit I'm getting a little tired of his act.
I'm going to agree with all that stuff. I've always been a fan of his too. He certainly had his shot to win last time. I mean, at the end of the day, Dan, did he have an excuse not to lose? No. Did he run really well in there? Yeah, I thought he ran really well in that race. I don't know. I'm a fan of his too. I like him getting to go a little bit shorter in this race. And I guess he'll have to jump on the Gray Wizard once again. He had to jump on him last time, but he couldn't hold him off.
Let's see what Mike's talking about, because the Gray Wizard is up next. We'll take a look at the Belmont Gold Cup. The first gray on the attack is Limited Liability. On the outside is the Gray Wizard, who settled at the back of the pack. Limited Liability is going to try to grind to Champagne Juan. He never gets by Champagne Juan, but look at the Gray Wizard really lengthening his stride at the end of the 2-mile race.
Yeah, he really comes with a big finish. Just in the last furlong or so, too. He just comes storming home here, and he gets up. A really good effort from the Gray Wizard, really good effort from Limited Liability as well. And the other thing to point out about that Belmont Gold Cup, too, though, Dan, because we've already shown the pace projection for this race, and the pace might be really slow. For a 2-mile race, they were going in the Belmont Gold Cup. That race set up really well for the Gray Wizard.
Really good is the number 4, and he's performed well at Delaware Park in the past. He won the Kent back in 2023 over soft turf. He ran okay in the Belmont Gold Cup. He was 4th that day, also coming from the back of the pack, just couldn't kick on with the Gray Wizard. Maybe the slightly shorter distance works better for him as well.
I think it probably does. I do like the fact that he's already won a race here as well, Dan. I don't know. I've never been a big fan of this horse, but I have to admit his last 2 races since they've gotten him back to turf, they're both good.
April Fool's Handy is up next, and he's going to be stepping up in class off this performance, going 7.5 furlongs in a restricted allowance. April Fool's Handy near the back of the pack in a race that didn't have a lot of pace. He's going to come with a decent run to finish 2nd, but now he's stretching all the way out. And when you go through his form, they've tried him in some stakes competition before, and it hasn't worked out well.
Yeah, exactly. He runs fine in this race. You saw how wide he had to come off the turn there, and he's only 2nd best, but it's an okay performance. I think you got to be really worried, not only about him stretching all the way out in distance, but doing so against horses like this.
English Conqueror, the number 6, has run some good races at longer distances. He won his seasonal debut off the layoff in a 2nd-level allowance going shorter. They tried the Bowling Green last time out. I thought all in all he was in a pretty decent position near the back. He just didn't kick on in the stretch. You can make the argument that this is a slightly weaker class of competition, but these horses are in good form, and he's playing their game going long.
Yeah, it's not a super soft spot for him. Listen, you get away from Silver Knot, you're doing all right for yourself, but it's not like he lands in a super soft spot here either. And I do think he's still got at least something to prove going this distance. He was behind limited liability last year in the Louisville going a mile and a half, and he was right up close to a very deliberate pace that day. To me, limited liability ran way better than he did that day.
Let's take a look at our top selections for the Cape Henlopen. You've always been a big fan of the Gray
Yeah.
Wizard. He's been good to you. I think he's got the strongest kick in here. I think on his best day, he's the best horse, but is he completely pace dependent?
I mean, it does kind of seem like he is, Dan. I think it could really work against him. I still think he just might be the best horse in here, and I'm going to take him on top because there's nobody else in here that I really wanted to bet against him.
We're both going 3-2-6-4, and the Cape Henlopen is the feature race at Delaware on Wednesday. Good luck.